Alrighty then. So now we're on to asystole, which is easiest. It's the flat line. Oh my god, the flat line. That one is when there's no rhythm. They really will ask you, but there's like all types of asystole. I'm not gonna go into them because I just don't care. You have like that agonal ace. I don't know if there's really. Sometimes they just show you stupid. Like they'll be like, "What rhythm is that?" And I've gotten it wrong before. Don't listen to me. But anyways, there's no rhythm. If there is no pulse, then you're gonna start CPR. You're gonna get IV, epi, vasopressin, and then you're gonna intubate. If they're asystole and there's a pulse, you're probably doing something wrong with your EKG. You can have asystole. Asystole can never have a pulse, but you can have a rhythm and not have a pulse. Because that's called PEA. So that's pretty simple. If they're asystole, you want to check because maybe you did something to the leads wrong, disconnected it. I've seen that. And then if not, CPR, IV, epi, vasopressin. You're gonna alternate those. And then intubate. Now we're gonna start on our heart blocks because that's the easiest part of your rhythms. Let's see. So your heart blocks are anatomic or functional impairments resulting in interruptions in impulse conduction. That sounds stupid. So that just means that there's supposed to be a rhythm going in your heart, and for some reason, because there's something going on with the anatomy, or because they're getting old, it's blocking the rhythm from conducting, from going through, right? So as you remember, your normal PR interval is 0.12 to 0.20. So always remember that. You know that it's a block when it starts to get longer than that. After you've seen a lot of EKGs, you won't always be able to see, but for a lot of the blocks, you'll be able to look at it and you'll say, oh, they are having a block. But you still have to measure it out and count it out so you can know what type, because there's many different types of blocks. Your first degree AV block is coming from the SA node and it's being delayed. So you have to think of, you remember that your AV node is kind of the blocker. Hey, it's blocking. Hey. Now with your first degree, it's kind of doing it for too long. Hey. Okay, go through. Hey. Okay, go through. It's doing a little bit too much. So that's when you know it's just a plain and simple first degree AV block. It's always going to be constant. It's always going to be the same, your PR interval. So if it's like 0.3, I'm just throwing a number out there. If you measure your PR interval and it's 0.3, then it's always going to be 0.3 and it's going to walk out accordingly. Patients are usually asymptomatic and there's a narrow and normal QRS. It's still something that you need to alert somebody about if they haven't had it before. Your second degree, you have two types of second degree heart blocks. One is called wenkebach. Everybody likes to say it because it has such a weird, funky name. It's a wenkebach. They have a wenkebach. Some people call it a Mobitz type 1. I don't know. I don't use Mobitz. I just like to call it a second degree type 1. But wenkebach sometimes can help you remember it a little more. That is when it is progressive lengthening that eventually results in a drop beat or going back to that shorter beat again. This sounds stupid. So you have your P, QRS, and then T, and then your P is longer, and then QRS, and then T, and your P is really long, and then QRS, and then T, and then a P, and then nothing. And then a P, QRS, T. I just said that. I know that sounded really dumb. But I think this is backwards for you. So the first one is a little bit longer. The first PR interval is a little long. The second PR interval is even longer. The third PR interval is even longer. And the fourth beat is dropped. Or the fourth beat goes back to what the first one was. And it starts the cycle all over again. That's called the wenkebach. Long, longer, longest, drop. Long, longer, longest, drop. That's your wenkebach. Um, Again, you know what's funny thing? Even though it's like one of my favorite beats, it's one of my least seen beats that I'm actually out in the field. I'm always trying to make everybody, it's a wenkebach. Don't you see it's a wenkebach? And they're like, no, it's not a wenkebach. But I'm always trying to make everybody have it. But I think I've seen it like once. Um, that one, you get the 12 lead vital signs, pulse ox, atropine at the bedside, and then monitor. Now, your second degree type 2, this one I didn't quite understand, but I guess the book was saying that the delay actually occurs in the AV node or below the AV node in the Purkinje system, right? So I guess the type 1 is above, and the black is above, and the type 2, the black is below. Usually there's more P's than QRS's. The PR is mostly constant, and there's, let's see, I guess. Oh, this person is almost always going to lead to a pacemaker. Now, this one, your second degree type 2 are going to be like your 2 to 1. I always think of type 2, 2 to 1. So if you see like a P, P, drop, P, drop, P, drop, then you know that's your second degree type 2. But they were saying later on that you cannot classify this as type 1 or 2 because there's no really QRSs with which to compare because every other beat is dropped. So I was thinking if it's like P, QRS, P, QRS, drop, P, QRS, P, QRS, drop, P, QRS, P, QRS, drop, then that you know as your second degree type 2. But the other ones, you're not really sure how to classify it. I read somewhere that it said if the QRS is narrow in these 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 blocks, then if it's narrow, then you know that it's in the AV node and it's a type 1. If it's wide, then it's a type 2 because it's going below the AV node. That sounds really confusing. Most people don't teach you that way. Most people teach you that the wenkebach is long, longer, longest drop, or long, longer, longest, long, longer, longest, long, longer, longest, and that the type 2 is just a 1, 2 drop, 1, 2 drop, 1, 2 drop. But I guess if you have enough mental strength to deal with this other way to classify is that narrow is type 1 or wenkebach, and then a wide QRS is type 2, and it's coming from below the AV node. Let's see, advanced second degree AV block. Advanced second degree AV block is 3 to 1 every third wave. Every third wave is conducted, or 4 to 1 every fourth wave is conducted. I just don't even understand that. So I told you, but I'm not going there. Now you have your third degree or your complete AV blocks. That's the only one that's like an official block. The other ones are kind of like a holding pattern. This one is a complete block. And in this one, it's kind of like, I'm not talking to you. So if you think of it, your sinuses are not talking to your ventricles. They're just not dealing with each other. So they're beating totally, they don't have anything to do with each other. That person is almost always going to need a pacemaker because that's the beat that the doctors always get really scared about. You want to make sure you get your pulse ox, your oxygen, recent set of vitals, IV, EKG, atropine at the bedside. You will sometimes consider giving epamine, dopamine, isoproterenol. If you transcutaneously pace, you want to consider something to ease the pain because it can be painful. Lastly,